welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for joining today. We are on the Coxton Sub in the town of Shifnal. This is next one of my route building videos. I've been waiting on this town for a while. One of the nice things about this town is that most of it's about to get demolished. So, I actually started this route a little over 4 years ago back in Trains A New Era, or Tane. And this is one of the towns where you can still see a lot of the remnants of what I used to think was really great scenery work in Tane. Like all of this right here. Looks terrible. It's okay. I'm judging myself here, not anyone else. So as long as your routes make you happy, you're good. But yeah, we're fixing this one up today. I want to go through here and wipe out all of this commercial district. I want to also get these roads actually connected up for the most part. There are going to be just a few roads in some of the neighborhoods I don't really worry about connecting, but pretty much anything within sight of the tracks, we're going to go ahead and give it a nice connection and intersection, all that good stuff. Now, I did a little bit of research using Google Maps and looked into some of the towns in this area of like western central Arkansas east central Arkansas that I'm modeling. And, to be fair, I felt like this town had way too little suburbs, and so I'll add eventually a ton of suburbs. And then I felt like I added too much. So then I went and looked at, Google Maps, and naturally, on Google Earth, you can only go back till around the 80s or so. But, there just was a lot of houses and not much of a whole lot of other things. And so I really didn't feel too bad after adding in a ton more houses about how the whole thing looks. I went ahead and just decided to really add a ton of houses, which honestly seems fitting. People are going to travel to other areas to work. There's a really nice sized town on this route, just about 7 miles north of here. There's a daily commuter service, so I'm sure plenty of the people in this town can feasibly get on the train and head to the next city up the way to get their work done. But there's an iron mine off to the east that we're not going to see in this video, and then there's the tool plant over here, kind of just to the left, that we have seen but not discussed. So there are industries, and then there's of course the railroad. There's the yard office of sorts. There's a local that runs out of here, so the crew would be based here in town. So there's a few jobs. But yeah, we're really just kind of gonna get some better assets in place. We're not gonna worry too much about the finer details. That's kind of my thing in the videos, is I really like to communicate and show off kind of setting up the big picture of things. At times I do some of the finer details, but I'm sure you've noticed, if you've watched a decent amount of my videos, that most of the videos are not focused on the hyper details usually. Of course, later on I'll come back and add things here and there. If you were to go look at Coxton, for example, now versus what I've shown in the videos, you would definitely see obviously some huge differences with the amount of detail, because I just added a lot of detail off camera. It's just kind of how I operate. But we're setting up a small little commercial area, a couple of warehouses over here to simulate or represent some very small businesses and industries. They can take their loads here off the team track, which were the two tracks that were just barely saw there in the image. They're not major industries. They don't need railside service, but they can offload a car or load a car here right in the yard, right by where that fence went, or hit there at the goods platform, which I think I might end up wiping that platform out. I'm not sure. We'll see. Definitely realized that I threw in on the previous warehouse over there some trailers that were too long, so got some shorter ones here, some 40 footers. Technically in the 70s, especially 1970, we didn't have 53 footers, but when it comes to nice van trailers for trucks, I've found several that I like, but there's not really a ton of nice 28 footers and 34 footers around on the download station, and I don't want to use third-party assets that you guys can't find. Ooh, sorry, excuse me, big yawn. It's kind of late over here recording this, but it is what it is. But here we go, kind of getting some of the suburbs in. I'm not going to mess with this area by the church, with the exception of adding in a gas station. This is mostly because if you go back and watch the video on the town of Luton, I forgot to add a gas station. There's not a single gas station in town. But the way I built that town, I'm just really proud of it. Everything was kind of custom done. I didn't really do too much copying and pasting. Here I do a lot of copying and pasting because Most of this is just kind of a blocked out town. And that's another thing I noticed about these towns is they are very blocky. They just have blocks everywhere, and I don't feel bad about that, because if that's what actually exists, then why would I not model that here? But here's where we're going to add in a couple more suburb areas over here. Kind of did a little fiddling until I got something I liked. But the nice thing about having these 3 residential sets is, you can rotate each one of them in one of 4 directions. And that essentially gives you 12 seemingly different residential palettes to work with. And when you sufficiently randomize them, which I didn't really randomize them as much here as I could have, you do really get the opportunity to get a ton of variation that's not really noticeable to the human eye in passing. You would really have to spend some time just staring at these little suburban blocks to recognize that some of them are the same. Now that I've told you that, of course, it'll be a lot easier for you guys to see that. But that's fine. I don't mind talking about that, because honestly, that's a great design element for background stuff, is just get a couple of blocks you can easily copy and paste and roll with it, especially now that their Surveyor 2.0 is out with the scrapbook tool. Man, you can obviously tell I'm not using Surveyor 2.0 for this route. But, man, the scrapbook tool is great for that kind of stuff. And I definitely look forward to getting into that once I get Trains 2022. Hopefully I get that this month. We'll see. Got a few things I'm working on right now outside of the trains world that are kind of getting in the way, but we'll see what happens. And here I am once again, just kind of laying out some of the intersections for the stuff that's, easily visible from the trackside. I have already worked on the farms here. Most of the crops grown in this part of Arkansas was mostly rice and soybeans. I do obviously model or represent with some textures some of those plants. But also there's plenty of wheat fields around, and I love using the turffx asset from the download station that lets you place wheat fields. So it's kind of, you can kind of, just for a brief second there, got to see them. But here we are. We're going to have another little commercial district between the tracks and those little suburbs. So here we're going to work on kind of some of those details on this side of town. Decided I wanted a few small houses over here. Kind of just some undeveloped area that hasn't really been plotted out yet. Just represent some areas that are still available for growing. Nothing too major. Also not getting into a lot of detail because this is clearly a background scene. If you're staying relatively close to the tracks, you're never going to see these houses back here. But we are going to go ahead and actually put the grass in instead of the dirt. This was a crop field at one point. Get some more intersections in. And then, I'll be honest, I up to this point, I was not actually very impressed with the work I had been doing here. I'm going to be honest. But I don't mind showing, on the channel things that aren't necessarily perfect or the greatest, because, at the end of the day, sure, there's a lot of ways I could probably make this better. And there's a lot of ways I could have made this better in the moment when I was shooting it. But at the end of the day, route building is it's not about getting everything perfect. It's about communicating an idea or a series of ideas, representing a model or a location or a scene, and really mostly just making sure that you're reasonably satisfied with what you have. If there's something you don't like, you just work on making it better, and you don't have to go for perfection on day one. This is probably the 3rd time that I've redone this town, for example, and that's fine. I'm cool with that, because now I finally end up with something that I'm actually pretty proud of. So, but I will say, working on this area, I feel like I did a much better job. But honestly, making towns and cities is just not really my thing. There are some YouTubers out there, who are excellent at making urban areas on routes. And I just look at their stuff and I'm just inspired, because it's just awesome. And I'm sure you guys know one of the ones I'm talking about. But man, I just see some great stuff out there, and it's inspiring. Urban areas isn't really my thing. I really more focus on building good looking industries because I like to operate. So we like to serve the industries. I don't really like or care too much for taking a bunch of beautiful pictures with nice backgrounds. So, we get the details next to the track, we get some believable stuff, and then I move on. And that's kind of how I operate, quite literally. And there's nothing wrong with that, because it makes me happy. Because I'm here to run trains and deliver cargo and passengers and all that good stuff. And no disrespect to anyone who more likes to set up beautiful scenes and take pictures. That's awesome. That's just not really my focus. So I do at least try to make it look not like it's crap, but at the same time, I'm not trying to win a digital art competition necessarily with these areas either. So, maybe it's one of those things once we get the initial release out and everything is mostly done and believable, maybe adding some of those ridiculous finer details is something I do if the route really gets popular. Who knows? We'll see. Maybe I'll just holler at Approach Medium, pay him to do it. I'm sure he's not busy. He's got time for me, I'm sure. He obviously does great work, but he has no idea who I am. We've never spoken. I'm sure he's a cool guy. But yeah, so this is the town of Shifnal. It's just got one industry in town. It's got a team track. It's got a small station for passengers, and then there's an iron mine just to the east. And all of that is served by the local that comes out of here. It basically runs from here down to Billary, which is the next town north. It's a pretty good sized city with a nice yard. And then that local picks up any cars that are bound back to Shifnal and also up to the town of Fulton, which I have not made a video of, but it is a very, very small town with just a couple of team tracks to the south of this one, about 6 miles or so. So that local runs to Fulton and then comes back and terminates here. And Shifnal just kind of hangs out in the yard for the next day. And we just run that local either on an as-needed basis or on a daily basis, depending on, traffic flow. So, but I think all in all, that local runs with just one locomotive. I think it never has more than probably 12 cars. And that's not because I have some artificial length limitation, but there's just not a lot of traffic. I think this Williams tool over here in Shifnal, and the iron mine, probably those two industries alone probably are 80% of the rail cars on the train. So, it's just not that much. But that's great. I love modeling major cities with lots of stuff to do, and I also like modeling smaller towns where you just get a local on occasion. You can switch everything in 20 minutes. So, but, we are going to get pretty close to the end here, but I do have a few more things to do. I decided I wanted to go ahead and not just add turffx, but also get the elevation of the ground up a bit to try to help bury some of this track. Yard tracks, especially sidings and stuff that's beat up and on the side in old towns, they're not going to be kept up as well as the main. So had to create a little bit of separation there just to give some distinction. Nice thing is, by changing the height of the terrain and not the tracks, I don't have to go mess with any weird, glitches and stuff that happens when you start changing elevation of tracks and you don't have enough spline points. But I definitely like how this turned out now. I'm going to leave some of these lots, undeveloped, just to kind of represent that obviously not everything is developed in town. There's plenty of space still to grow. It is only the 70s, and towns have grown a ton since then. But here we'll kind of get, some of that stuff modeled, and nothing that's like too dense. We don't want like a forest or anything. But, definitely wanted to get some believable scenes here. So I'll leave you guys with these cut scenes. There's one of the commuter trains. Haven't shown those off in a while, just to part in the station. But thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoy the content, and stay tuned for more stuff. Looking for a Railroader live stream this weekend. So if you're into Railroader, tune in Sunday. What is it, 8 p.m. Central? Yeah, we're going to be live. Thanks so much, guys. I'll catch you guys next time.